The first 3 weeks of the eruption here in Hawaii, crazy things would happen in the middle of the night. A new fissure would open up and it would threaten a new neighborhood. Thousands of people are evacuated from their homes. I started the Hawaii Tracker Facebook group to help people understand what's going on and get their questions answered.
Hey, how's it going? We're live. This is Fissure 20.
We had hundreds of people all throughout the neighborhoods sending in videos, articles, and images. We spend a lot of time making sure the accurate information gets out.
This is live. There's still lava moving.
They weren't just sharing a story, they were helping their neighbor. If a family was being evacuated, a group would just jump in and help out. So it was huge. They were watching out for each other.
Hello everybody, thank you for coming. Thank you for the support from everybody.
As we go through this, we're growing closer together as a community. When tragedies like this strike, you really realize how much you need each other.
Aloha everyone, I'm geologist Philip Ong, here with Mr. Dane DuPont of HawaiiTracker.com, bringing you guys yet another Hawaiian volcano tracker update, focusing on Maunaloa today, Monday, November 28th. It's 10 p.m. This is our fifth and final update of the day. We're coming up on 24 hours and not too long, and we're going to give ourselves a break here as the eruption settles into a little bit more of a pattern after quite a lot of change in this first 24 hours. So our goal is to bring you up to date on the most recent updates from the USGS, show you guys what they're talking about with some illustrations here, look at where this actually is happening in the maps, the best kind of map information we can gather for you guys, and yeah, then we'll get out of here. Some questions and other stuff as we go. We're obviously tired, Dane. This is our fifth update of the day, so hopefully everyone will forgive us if we're a little slow and
groggy, right?
Not quite on point here, but we're going to do our best as usual.
Yeah. So one thing that I was looking at, and we spent a little bit of time on, kind of why we were late, is trying to figure out, where this primary lava flow, the distal tip, where it's actually going, where it, ballpark it is. The maps haven't been exactly forthcoming so far. So we're doing our best with the limited information that we have, and we're going to try and show you what we think is actually happening up there.
Yeah, for sure. And then it's worth stating that we're still in this build-up phase of the eruption where the actual vent locations could still change in the next hours to days, and we'll track that as it goes along. But thus far, it seems like stabilize a little bit, perhaps temporarily, but we'll have to wait and see what actually comes of this next. So on the screen here is a picture that's taken from Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, showing Maunaloa and showing that eruption at sunset there. And from this angle, looking to the north, it's more obvious that we're looking at that northeast flank, the eastern flank of Maunaloa. Turns out that some of the views we were getting from Kona yesterday seem to show some people talk about there being a little bit of an optical illusion as far as like where the flow currently is coming down. But we'll also show a little bit of evidence that there was actually some flow up in that upper southwest rift area, just based on some Coast Guard thermal imagery that we have as well. So we'll try to tie up those loose ends here as we update our status on the volcano. So anything else, Dane, before I jump into it here? Oh, I can't hear you.
Yeah, I said I'll jump in a little bit later. Not much now, but there's a decent amount to discuss here. It's an ever-evolving situation, and we're trying to catch you up on the last several hours.
Yeah, sounds good. I'll keep you on screen here, and we can move through it and jump in as you need, or if I stumble here. Get the data today. All right, so this is a view from National Park, and as I mentioned, now let me zoom it out, because the reason I put this on screen here is this is shared on Hawaii Volcanoes National Park Twitter, and you can see both Kilauea's active lava here and Maunaloa's at the same time once again. So the last time Maunaloa erupted in 1984, Kilauea was also erupting, and here we are once again with a really unique sight, both volcanoes at the same time here at sunset. So that's when I start off with that, a little bit of the appreciation of the beauty of it here. And let me move right into what we actually have as our newest update from the USGS. This was issued at 4:55 p.m. Hawaiian Standard Time. And here is what it states. Eruption of Mauna Loa continues on the northeast rift zone. 3 fissures erupted, and as of 1:30 p.m., only the lowest of the 3 fissures was active. Estimates of the tallest fountain heights are between 100 to 200 feet, 30 to 60 meters, but most are a few yards or meters tall. The fissures sent lava flows to the northeast and parallel to the rift zone. Lava flows from the 2 higher fissures moved downslope, but stalled about 11 miles, 18 kilometers from Saddle Road. Fissure 3 of the northeast rift zone, I'll say, is currently feeding lava flows moving east parallel to the northeast rift zone. Those remain at above 10,000 feet elevation and over 10 miles from Saddle Road. Do not expect upper fissures to reactivate. However, additional fissures could open along the northeast rift below the current location, and lava flows can continue to travel downslope. There is no active lava within Moku'aweo'weo caldera, and there is no lava erupting from the southwest rift zone. We do not expect any eruptive activity outside the northeast rift zone. No property is at risk currently. There is a visible gas plume from erupting fissure fountains and lava flows, with the plume primarily being blown to the northwest. That's the bulk of it there. There are some extra remarks here, but that's really the meat. Short and sweet and simple, no extra text. I love that. That's awesome to see that straightforward. So a lot of these are points that we'll follow up on here. There's no active lava in Moku'aweo'weo caldera. There was earlier in eruption, but that summit phase appears to have ended. Or erupting from the southwest rift zone. We don't think any lava was actually erupting from the southwest rift at any point. It was erupting from the summit and then spilling over in that upper southwest rift direction is what appears to be the case here. And we still have gas blowing primarily to the northwest. I haven't seen any reports of anyone getting any PLA hairs or anything yet, but that could still be coming, and it could be that stuff's still being held. So that's the most recent information from USGS, and given that things have stabilized, they are also taking a break until morning. Of course, they have 24 shifts, and so it's just a matter of what they're putting actually here. We'll wait for the morning for another report. So here is a Twitter thread from USGS Volcanoes, and to recap, 3 fissures erupted, but as of 1:30 p.m., only the lowest of the 3 fissures was active. So 3 fissures on the northeast rift zone, I'd like to clarify, right? Because we actually clearly saw there was a fissure across the summit caldera, and we're not sure if it might have been in one strand or multiple strands that might have spanned further over to that western side of the caldera floor. So all that aside, all of that's inactive and so really irrelevant at this point. And what you're looking at is a view from uprift to downrift, and let me zoom it in there. That's steaming cone, and that's dewy cone, right? So I believe this is about 12,000 feet and about 11,000 feet, more or less elevation there. And so you see in between those, that's the line of fissures. There's 1 and 2 and 3. It's taken this morning. Those 3 fissures. We'll get another angle here. That's just to put it in perspective of where that actually is. To mention that Hawaii County Civil Defense is following USGS lead. See, oh, this is the previous update, but if I reload it here, you should see this time on this graphic is updated to 4:55 p.m. There it is, with all that same information as well. Civil Defense is not worth reading it all again, but that's happening. And to help you understand what's going on there, let's turn to some photographs here. And we'll start with our old friend Scott Wilson, who just got back from a flight to Maunaloa with a student, and I'll just highlight one of these pictures. And there's all kinds of imagery on Hawaii Tracker Facebook group. So if you really want to see more of this, then go on there and check it out. Right. So here's a view from the air. The summit is up in that direction, so 3 fissures are, 1 is right there, 2 and 3 down here. 3 is the lowest one, and this is the one that remains active. See this photograph taken earlier in the day. From this distance, it looks like they're about the same, those fissures. So let's iterate here and let's go to this image provided by Andrew Hara. Dane, do you know if this is Andrew's video or did he source it somewhere else?
I think this is Samantha's.
That one's coming next. Or is it?
This might be Andrew's, but I'm not exactly sure. It's one of the two. Everything's kind of loose, and we kind of share footage in these situations pretty liberally. So, sorry if we don't get the accreditation exactly correct. A lot of these guys are really helpful individuals, so we appreciate all of them.
Well, so we'll give Andrew Hara credit, and then we can correct that. So here's a view. Let's play this, taken from flight over this fissure zone. And what you can see there is that's the 3rd fissure. There's a second. The first one just scrolled off to the left, and you can see the 3rd one's a little bit bigger than that second one right now, but they're about equal in height. Maybe zoom in here. Hands over. So you get a view of the fissures. Maybe put it back to the beginning. So there's that second one. See getting a little bit bigger in a 3rd one, but not that different in size. And view from a few hours later, and this one is also posted on Tracker, and this is from Samantha Hansen. So and by now you can see how much bigger that fountain is at Fissure 3. Some other rift zone features, but wait till it comes around. There is that big fountain, a big river that's being fed all the way down. You can't quite see the end of it, but it's going all the way past where the pan out goes, right? Going. You want to see what happens off screen over here. But going back around. Slope. The second fissure is just a little bit behind there. It's quite a bit smaller, but that's the difference in angle. So that's what USGS is describing, that the activity is migrating to that lower fissure, and you can see it correspondingly, it's grown in volume. It's taking all the volume out of one spot rather. It's fascinating, and it could keep doing that. It could keep opening further down. Just have to wait and see how the story unfolds here. This image is by Tim Hamburg who shared it with me, a private message here on Facebook. And here we believe we're looking at Fissure 3 exclusively. The other fissures would be off the camera, the angle off the screen here to the right. Looking closely, you do see there's a couple of segments. There's that one, which just seems like the main segment. There's another little one over here. And we're not quite sure what's happening down over here on this side over here. But one thing to consider is that the fissures could still be opening down slope, and it could be doing that slowly or in pulses. And so we're not sure if this is all just part of the fissure that's evolved, or if it's anything changing there. So we just don't have quite as frequent reference. But we'll note it for next time. There's the fissure, and there is a flow that's going in a lobe down through the rift zone. And there's one that actually right in here seems to take a left-hand turn and then heads towards the saddle, which is where this image was taken. And a couple other flows up here, but this is one that Dan and I have been looking at and reconstructing where everything is based on this key image here. So mahalo, Tim, for sharing that. Let's put this on. So we'll come back to this a little bit, but let me continue here and just what else we have, and as far as the footage, and mentioned U.S. Coast Guard footage from the C-130 Hercules flyover with Hawaii County Civil Defense, tracking progression, lava flow at Maunaloa. And you can see the fissures exploding. Let's see why it's hung up here. Set to reload. By at the Tom George. And let me get this. Let's see again. I'm gonna rewind it too. So this first opening view here is it a thermal or an infrared or something along those lines? And what you're seeing as this white color is that hot lava. Go ahead, Dane.
No, but you're correct. I mean, interchangeable at some points, the usage. I call this infrared, but yeah.
So the white stuff is the hot lava in the caldera. This is the shape of the caldera right in here. The caldera actually probably goes out like that, and we're in a circle, right? We saw from the webcam that there was this little chunk in the front left that seems a little bit higher ground, didn't get covered quite as much. Flow then goes around that, hits this low gap on that north caldera wall, and that's where it's flowing out. You see into a lot of that. So it's not far from here that fissures also have opened. But the reason I pause in here and I'm spending so long on this opening frame is because looking here, we're looking from west to east, and so this is the western edge of the caldera right here. Kind of, right? There's other pits, but what you're seeing is this white zone right through here, and we're seeing the shape of lava flow that has headed downhill, probably not outside that summit region, but still downhill outside the caldera here in the southwest. That's what this seems to. So we only get a quick view of it. There is a temporary flight restriction around Maunaloa, so we're not getting so many images of this summit area, especially this western side. We're getting more of the eastern side where the lava flows are as far as imagery. So this is a fairly unique find for us here to put that. But let's play it through, and you can see it'll pan around. You can see where the active fissures are still erupting there, and there it is. Seeing the emissions of gas, lots of gas there, and you can see the lava fountains shooting in. So, as we said, all this is on Hawaii Tracker. Go and peruse it, study it to your heart's content. All right, let's move on because our try to keep this efficient so we can get some rest here. This is the first map that was put out by the USGS at 1 p.m. today, and it's showing in purple all the lava flows since 1843. So the purple is just the historic flows. What you're really looking for is right in here. Let me zoom it way in. Right in there. Those three dashes, those are the three fissures on the northeast rift zone. Fissure 1 there, fissure 2, and fissure 3. Now, not noted on here, we've noted, we've said that there are fissures in the summit. We certainly saw one on a webcam that was something like this, like draw quite a straight line, and we're not quite sure exactly, right? It could easily have come as far as here to be able to spill out of the crater area. Not this purple flow, but the one we just saw in that scarred, that whitish area. So that's the first view we got of where this might actually be, and we're going to overlay all this on Google Earth for you in a minute. But let me a couple other things here, and just a preliminary location. This is the second map that was put out, and only one active fissure by that point. It's purple bar right in here. Morning fissures now inactive. Morning flows now inactive. Caldera floor mostly lava covered, now inactive. And over here, early morning flows now inactive. So we're also getting this clue from the map right here. It's probably hard for you guys to read that, but I zoom away and see it. Flows early morning active, and then where we actually have activity, with the most vigorous flow fronts depicted at the end of this arrow at a timestamp of 1:30 p.m. Okay, so there is that one, and in trying to reconstruct what was happening here, Dane has this post up from earlier that was fantastically sourced by Timothy E. Wright using Sentinel-2 data. And this is capturing that hottest part of the flow at the moment, and he's filtered it through to really highlight that hottest area right in there. And after looking at this and looking at that image that we just showed you from Hamburg, and taken this actual map that Timothy Wright produced and overlaid out in Google Earth, so you can get a view of where that actually sits, and get some reference of what that flow might actually look like on Maunaloa there. So that's the most recently active stuff. But to get a fuller picture, we have also found on Twitter at Culture Volcan, and writing in French here, but also using Sentinel data. And you can see in this set of images, the first one's a little grainier here, and then smooth. Use this one to show you guys. You see not only these brighter, hotter areas of the active flow, but you also can see inactive flows. Here, zoom it in as much as possible. Those are the inactive flows that have stalled out, and here is that active pair of flows. One that in that photograph we saw took a left turn that way, like that. So coming up and taking a left turn somewhere like that, and then we have this flow still continuing to that with drift zone in that parallel to the zone direction over there. So in comparison to the summit caldera, there it is, and looking at the length of the fissures and extended flows, right? We talked about Fissure summit, and that whole span is 11 kilometers. And 11 kilometers is 6 miles, Dane? 7 miles. 7 miles.
Yeah.
So, yeah, 7 miles end to end, focused in one spot here eventually. And that's where the flow has settled to come out from that Fissure 3 on a northeast rift.
Right. And I got a little bit jumping on here. So just to defend what Tim was able to do there, I mean, it was quite impressive for the time. And one of the limitations that many people that have been trying to utilize the satellites today is the plume and the cloud cover, right? To try and fully get a view through all those is rough. The way the plume is working is really obscuring a lot of things right now. So this was really, and USGS even posted this as a, not as a response. They took the time to repost this on Twitter because it was so well done at the time, right? And then this one was the one we're looking at currently. This more refined version is It was produced much later, like 8 hours later type thing. So somebody was able to come through the Sentinel-2. I believe that was Sentinel, wasn't it?
Yes.
Or was that okay? It was Sentinel. All right, so they were able to come through Sentinel and find that ideal one to get the plume out of the way, right? And all of the different iterations and frames. So big ups for Culture Vulture to get that out and take the time to be able to get that shared, right? We appreciate everybody in the citizen science community, at home and abroad, that like contribute. If it's in French, it's in French. We'll figure, we'll still try and find it and use it if it's the best available.
Yeah, so merci beaucoup, Volcan. Happy to have that. So we took this and we put it into Google Earth like the other image, and so here you can see on Google Earth where that flow sits. And I have on here a few other lines, and so let me explain them and I'll take them away. First of all, there is Dewey Cone that we just described in that USGS photograph. And in red here, this is the actual summit trail to Maunaloa cabin. Maunaloa cabin sits in here, all within Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. So those of you who have walked up the Northeast Rift to Maunaloa Summit, this eruption is occurring over that section of the trail between Dewey Cone. If that wasn't obvious before. So that can be understood. Let's take off the trails. So there is that location, and the next thing I have on here in white are the boundaries of the inundation zones. And so the inundation zones as defined by the USGS by Frank Truesdell. And you can see that it's 2 lines here and here. That's the boundary of the rift zone. That's the edge of the rift zone there and there. And lava, only when it exits that rift zone area can it be then considered to be caught within one of these basins. That's it's called an inundation zone or lava shed or what. The flow is a little bit right on the edge right here. And that is interesting because this hits into the saddle, and whatever goes in the saddle on east side will turn towards Hilo, and whatever goes on the west side will turn towards Pohakaloa area. So that's interesting to see where it will eventually go, and if it's got multiple arms, which one takes more of the flow and which eventually settles, presuming that this vent ends up staying stable and it doesn't migrate to a different vent further down slope. That said, the Pohakaloa area obviously has got its own hazards if flow goes in that direction, but most people are living down in the Hilo area. Hilo is that biggest urban center on the island here. And you can see that Hilo has actually 2 lava sheds or inundation zones that comprise it. This northern one of Kaumana, which is where this flow could potentially go. And if it did that, it would take some path more or less like this into Kaumana. And if it were to continue down a rift zone before entering that Hilo area, then it goes into this Waiakea lava shed, and then that's a whole separate area of Hilo. Actually be hazard. So
right.
One thing that often happens, we've heard Frank Truesdell talk about, and I'll mention it again, is this whole divide and conquer approach, where the flow hitting this flat spot of the saddle then stalls at the front while being fed from behind. That creates a overflow of lava within a channel. It jumps its banks and makes a new flow off to the side, and that manner kind of divides and spreads out rather than pushing all its momentum forward and towards our communities and residences. However, if you want to plan for the worst case, then you'd say, okay, what if it does put all its energy straight forward? What if it has the highest eruption effusion rates that we've considered from this area of the rift zone before? Then how fast could it get there? And then you're looking at potentially a matter of a week or so. Right? So that would be the absolute worst case. The flow in 1984 lasted less than 3 weeks and came within 5 miles of Hilo at the time. There obviously are more development today than there was 38 years ago, so that same flow might have some impact today, although not go into the actual boundaries of the town itself. And of course, if it were to go longer than that, The eruption in 1880-81 that lasted 280 days, over 9 months. If it can divide and conquer and keep going for 9 months, it'll eventually get there. So that's the other part of it. However, as I heard you say, Dane, earlier, this is really the best possible place for us to have a rift zone eruption. It's going away from people in a flat spot where it gives us extra time to respond. It's not a matter of just hours before it's into residences. I mean, you can get there at all. Obviously, this is our way to prepare, so we will do that. But go ahead.
Yeah, I sent you some things on Telegram. I want you to try and pull up, and I will talk for a minute while you are able to do that. But yeah, the eruption, the location that it's taking place in, if you were to tell me like we're having a rift zone eruption and put it in the most benign area possible, I would put it in a pretty similar area as this. The thing that we're looking at now is, the advancement towards that saddle road, and it's quite steep in the beginning coming off the slopes, but as Philip was saying, and we've seen highlighted by USGS, it does get much more gradual, the slope, before reaching into the saddle. And then the way the steepest ascent lines would show or suggest is if it was to continue on that line as diverted by previous lava flows down the mountain, like a kind of like a plinko all the way down, it would eventually find the saddle and possibly move on the saddle for a decent amount of time before getting off of it. But yeah, the photos that I sent is that just a little more advancement down slope that we can see.
Can I get to that after we talk about where the flow was and all that?
Okay.
So right. I have here a pin of that's based on a USGS update of the distances from the saddle road and elevation wise of where we thought that flow front was at 5 p.m. And we think that the photo we should just showed you, the ones that I'm going to pull up here are going to exceed that. Going down, these blue lines shown here are the lines of steepest ascent. So when we talk about these inundation zones, they're essentially dividing these ascent lines into kind of zones. You can see all the ones over here are all the ones that go towards Hilo. Why that's that one bucket, and then all the ones on this side all go towards Kona. That's why it's an interesting spot for it to be straddling at the moment here and to see where it goes. So superimposed on here, there is that first USGS map. You zoom it in more and have it kind of take a little bit so you can see in comparison where those 3 dashed lines actually are compared to that right flow. But there's that's what it looks like if I highlight it right in there. And in the second map, it's a little more transparent there. So that active third fissure is down here in this area, and there is that red line showing the extent at 1:30 p.m. and then at 5 p.m. as Dane mentioned, and then we have back to up the by Tim here. That's that one, and then now let me put up this one. Showing it progress a little further down. Dane, here's your first image. Want to speak on it?
Yeah, so this one was just recently sent to me by long-term friend of Hawaii Tracker, Andrew Hara, and he's up trying to get some photos taken. He always shares his photos free to the most relevant stuff that he can. He's been trying to get up in the helicopter. Hopefully tomorrow he'll be able to share some great photos with us. Yeah, we really appreciate him, and this is just the latest that we were able to bring to you, the flow and high definition, as high as we can get right now. And it's really hard to get photography of this, dodging that plume, dodging all the fog and the distance, and not only that, like just the exposure is incredibly hard to nail. Right, you wouldn't believe it until you're trying to take a photo of the lava and you realize everything just gets blown out or is completely black, and to find a balance is just so difficult. So we appreciate them.
Yeah, and then you're moving in a craft on top of that. Good luck.
It's insane. Yeah, good luck.
Great job, Andrew. Appreciate you. And yeah, fantastic here. And I really like how it's showing all this gas that we're gonna as well. But a lot of times we're focusing on the images that are the clearest views, as Dane said, and the most direct views of the lava. But all this is happening all over the place, all this gas, and does make it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a little bit of that. Let me come back to the map here and off these lines once again. Well, maybe before I do that, I'll highlight here where we are. If we were to come down this steepest ascent line here, this is a path that would be anticipated to take. Curving this way, crossing the saddle road there, and essentially moving down across the saddle road and onwards from there towards Kamana. And of course, that would be if that vent stays in this current location. And just to reiterate, it's still possible that that location migrates downrift somewhere else, and then it pops up and takes a different path, actually, right? So that's why we'll keep monitoring and updating as okay, now see the descent lines off. Let me turn off some of these maps that are kind of cluttering. What was it? Lost my.
Oh, sorry. We've been up for so long that I hope everybody understands, and I'm sitting here trying to do things in the comment section as well. So
I appreciate it. Yeah. So yeah. So oh yeah, the road. That's what I was going to talk about. So if I zoom in enough, here you'll see that this is the Maunaloa Weather Observatory Road right in here. And the Weather Observatory itself is right there. And so the flow front has a 5 p.m. right there. And if we take in these images that we've just seen, flow coming further down than drawn on a map, then we would not be surprised if the flow is actually cut across this access road in this area as well. Right, and if it's done that, then it's cut through the power lines as well and cut off power to the Weather Observatory, and hopefully everything is evacuated from there at this point. We're going to get out by vehicle. All right, that was the last thing in there. So let me keep moving and we'll wrap it up so we can keep it coherent here. So another from Timothy E. Wright, and this is what I enjoyed here. They are starting overnight from the GOES 18 band 5, right? And so what I like is essentially like a animation over time. You see that eruption starting at the summit, and it's going to migrate to the northeast there, the northeast rift zone. That's pretty cool to see that. You do see this extra spot up in the southwest also, right? A little bit in the southwest, summit there, and migrating to the northeast. So really, in a few seconds here, you get that whole sequence that has been giving us a little bit of mystery for the last 24 hours here. So pretty cool, and that. And just to show this one more time, we're in this response time map by the USGS in this zone that's this blue over here, which typically has has half the eruption rates on a northeast rift than you typically get in a southwest rift. And that means in combination with the not as steep slopes in Hilo side compared to Kona side, that lava flows from this region can reach populated areas within weeks to months. And so that's why we have a little extra time to rest and prepare and consider what's happening and adapt, and why we were in such a frenzy at the early parts of this, because this was still on a table reaching population in a matter of hours, and in that case you would still be all over the place. Thankfully, we have this best case scenario time to prepare, and I would appreciate that. Okay, so that's the map. At this point, we can check in on the current views of the webcams. Now, we've just explained about how the summit area is become inactive, but that's why we did that in that order. So now when we look at the summit webcam, and you see this is a summit crater, just little spots of glow of what was this entire caldera full of lava, and the glow is off to the east, to the left of the camera now from that summit view. The thermal camera is showing that new pad of lava on a caldera floor. It's not glowing visibly, but it's certainly still hot. You can see this orange temperature is showing here somewhere in the range of 150 degrees Celsius. That's the MT camera. We'll skip by the ones that are not updating since October. And here's a view from the Mauna Kea camera, the MK camera. So this is facing Maunaloa, and there is that fissure and flow going down the saddle. Just one spot on that, and showing that. Cool. And we can look at some of these other pages. This is the M1 that's taken from the national park, looking at Maunaloa from the south. It's been really cloudy recently, so maybe this will clear up at some point. You just see a little bit of glow through the clouds right through here, and it could be more dramatic. The M2 camera and the middle part of Mauna Loa's southwest rift zone. You can see towards that northeast rift and that bright glow in the sky, and possibly you could even see the fissure from there. It seems like there are certain angles that you might be thinking you're looking up at the southwest rift, but really it could be this rift if you're looking at it today. If you're looking at it last night, then we've described how there was flow in that part, summit region, southwest rift last night. M3 camera, the upper part of Mauna Loa southwest rift, so further up the slope, and you just see the glow, not so much from the summit. The high point really is kind of right in there, so that would be the summit right there, and a little bit to the right is that upper northeast zone flank for describe the eruption still. So that is the current status, and we can recap a couple of these views for you. So this is the MT camera, and we'll just play this animation here of what it actually posts up at the beginning of the eruption, that summit phase. You can see it almost just popped out and quickly stalled and froze right there. Obviously, it's much sped up there from the detail that we showed you guys earlier in the day. Looking at the actual visible, this is that more current view with just little spots of glow, and there is that full sequence from early last night through the daytime where you don't see as much, and from nighttime just the dots of the glow. It's a very dramatic, dynamic day at Mauna Loa. And the last one we'll show is that Mauna Kea camera. So looking across at Mauna Loa, and see there's an antenna here, and through a lot of fume and clouds once again, because a lot of this gas is rising and blowing towards this point of view. But as we just showed you guys, currently has a good view, and over time you can see the challenges of trying to look at them, fly up there and have photography possible, and just trying to get the actual view day and night distance across the weather-rich saddle here. Still pretty cool, and we'll keep an eye on these and further cameras as we move through the days ahead. So
right.
Those are the webcams. Anything you want to add here, Dane?
No, I was just seeing some different comments in here about the different things that people were expecting. Sorry, I got a little echo going on. Seems like one of the comments I was seeing that was that ocean view seems like it's dodged a bullet. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think we haven't seen it stated quite this way, but the fact that the lava is established in the northeast rift now and not expected to go anywhere else is essentially an all clear for Kau, for South Kona, for all of the rest of Kona there, with the exception of possibly the upslope saddle areas, depending on what that flow straddling that boundary does. So yes, for all of our residential communities in Kona side and south side and Kau side, this is a real sigh of relief. Don't just stop your preparedness, of course, right? There will be an eruption in that part of the volcano at some point, sooner or later. The volcano is obviously filling with magma at a different rate than before, and so who knows when that actually happens. Probably not right now, but may as well take this extra time that we've been blessed with and catch up my preparation here.
Right.
Keep at
Why
it.
in general is it once the eruption goes into a rift zone, we consider that it's taken the rift and that's the rift that it's chosen? Why is that?
Well, can't tell you exactly. Like now that I know the answer to that. That's a pattern that we've seen,
Right.
that hasn't been broken.
It's a historical record, yeah.
The dynamics of modeling and the flank moving, and once it actually forces its way into one rift zone, and the flank's forced to move to adjust, and then it becomes kind of I would imagine not exactly a runaway process, but like the flank moving encourages the lava to stay pushing in that one area and not back up. A complementary question that I've been pondering a little bit is this whole how the eruption began. And actually tried to go. I mean, it had summit fissures, and we saw flows from that upper southwest rift area. The volcano obviously was configured to open to the northeast rift, probably this entire time since 1984. Considering how similar the eruptions actually are, we just had a hard time making that interpretation, right? Because of the historical patterns, and you don't expect to have two eruptions in the northeast rift with 38 years in between them when you see more than half the eruptions at the summit. So we'll address a little bit more of the statistics on that tomorrow and those kind of patterns. But ultimately, it's the pattern, and then the dynamics make sense, right? And I think in theory, if you had some big enough magma injection into the mountain, maybe you could have some break in the pattern. But the mountain is so massive, it can probably accommodate most of those cases. So that's my kind of trying to talk through a discussion of that interesting question that I really don't have a solid answer for.
Right. And to me, it strikes me as it's so big that it would take time just to translate that injection of magma into surface activity type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, but when you see how fast it can actually go into one of those rifts and how far it can spread down a rift and how many places it can erupt at the same time on that rift, then that shows you that it certainly is possible, but it didn't seem that possible this time, right? So that southwest rift area does, we have seen earthquakes in that upper southwest rift, but not below that in the southwest rift really at any point. So thankfully for South Kona, it seems like that was not a place the magma was able to get into. And that ultimately is what given us this extra time. Yeah. So I want to talk about the gas still as the last thing, and then let's wrap it up with a little bit of the earthquakes here. Anything you want to add here before we?
No, I think that's good for now. We'll talk a little bit of gas and earthquakes. I've seen a lot of questions about earthquakes and people wondering, about what the current earthquake activity is. Is it showing anything? So yeah, it'd be good to dive into those.
So first, let's do the gas. Let's start with what I've shown before. This is from NOAA satellites. This is the imagery showing a heat signature and this puff of SO2, sulfur dioxide, released from the summit caldera that's shown this yellow kind of flying off. That was the first view that we got. But we have a follow-up from Professor Simon Karn using Sentinel and Pulmi data, and now showing a larger field of view, and you can see how that gas cloud has continued flying off and rising into the atmosphere here. And the group here is reporting 0.2 teragrams of SO2 on November 28th. Right, this is just one day into the eruption, so it's actually a daily rate of 0.2 teragrams, which we can convert for you guys as 200 million or 200,000, which is the same ballpark value we saw from Ahu'ala'au in 2018, the Lower East Rift Zone. Now, that eruption in 2018 sustained that value for a long, long time, and that's one of the things that made it unique. That doesn't always happen that way, and so that'll be interesting to note whether that stays consistent or not across the eruption. For reference, the 84 Maunaloa lava flow over the course of 2.5 weeks, so I don't know, somewhere in a range of what 16, 17 days we'll call it, right? So a factor more ended up coming up at 1.2 teragrams, right, or 1.2 million tons of SO2 for that 2.5 weeks. And so see in that case it may have tailed off, but still accumulated quite a bit, and that's why we have so much fog impact as a concern for our community now. Now we have this eruption coming up at fairly high elevation, and a lot of this is getting caught aloft and not making it down to the trade wind levels where it affects people. However, that has not stopped preparation and announcements. Here's a news release from the Department of Health, just noting the potential for air quality hazards from Maunaloa eruption. They note that there are air quality monitoring stations and all the tips as far as what to do if you are exposed to fog: reduce activity. If you have asthma, take precautions and have medication. Health effects, contact a doctor. Stay indoors with windows closed. You could use face masks not for protection from fog or SO2. However, that can be effective against any particulates, whether that be ash or Paley's hair or anything like that that's coming out. And see some other recommendations there. The EOH, and as we noted yesterday, we'll keep checking on these air quality signals. Here is our state of Hawaii air quality data, and reload here. And there we have green across stations report. That is still the case. Let's check in the purple air. Citizen Science Network here, and it's also green everywhere. However, you can look at our VOG forecast. That's not really differentiating here, and at the levels where this is blowing, is showing from Maunaloa with an emission rate of 100,000 tons per day, right? We just got the report from Dr. Karn that this may be double that, in which case you'd have a wider zone of color here on this plume with the same kind of pattern of dispersal. So Kilauea still putting out its plume, and then Maunaloa adding to it as well. You can see that we would expect fog impact, especially in other islands in the coming weeks here. So that is the little bit on the gas. We'll keep an eye on that. As far as the earthquakes, here is the most recent set of earthquakes on island and at the summit. Red is the ones that are within the last hour. So you can see that all these in the last half a day have all been in this northeast rift zone area. In this case, our northeast flank, just south of the rift zone. The rift zone wants to open up, so the flank has to move out of the way there to create that space. Otherwise, it seems like it's not any new areas having earthquakes, right? There's our upper southwest rift area, but below that, you see there's really nothing anywhere else down in that's concern. As far as the size of these earthquakes, let me zoom it in a little more here. Try to keep it just to the mountain. So most recent ones we had here within the last hour: 2.5, 2.6, 2.3, 7, 3.5, and then going back in time, you can see several 2s, a whole bunch of different 1s, some more 2s. Don't really have a 3 unless we go all the way back 1240. Okay. So yeah, it has certainly slowed down as far as the earthquakes up there, but lava's coming out of the ground, and it's more just sliding things along that rather than having to break them since it's found a path out. So that is the current status of earthquakes. I thought one last thing I could show you guys on the earthquake front is our good old trusty Iris earthquake browser. And let's get this zoomed in so you can see this whole eruption sequence so far, just for the last day here. And there is a pattern of earthquakes on the summit, some on that northeast flank. Right in there, that's that trace of the rift zone with the current flow is somewhere right in here as their source, and come down somewhere in the range. See that earthquake pattern? Nothing really abundant, right? It kind of just was elevated. And what was really noteworthy about those earthquakes yesterday, Dane, was not how many there were, but how big they were, happening back to back up at the summit. Yeah. Oh, can't hear you.
Oh, I was saying also how shallow they were, right? Because those things were getting pretty dang shallow in there. That was the size and the shallowness was my indicator.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's really it. The earthquakes have slowed down. We're not seeing any, earthquakes anywhere else, like signs of migration of the fissures anywhere else, and that's something might still happen. It might not, and the longer it goes without changing, the more we would lean towards believing it's settled into that spot. But really, you'd like several days to pass before you're really more confident in that. Hasn't finished still. So once again, we've gone just about an hour, and that's, I think, enough for our 5th update of the day here. Maybe we can selectively have some questions, Dane, without killing ourselves here, so we can get some sleep and some intelligence tomorrow.
I was trying to answer as much as I could in chat, but
great.
Don't really have anything prepared there. We did have $20 from Judy as a super chat. Appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, we're both pretty much beat at this point, and we are, now on that northeast rift zone eruption, and we are just watching that. And we'll be back in the morning with anything new. The morning brings those overflights and all those guys that go up first light, try and get those early shots with the good lighting. So we'll be anticipating those and bringing those to you in the morning.
Yeah, sounds good. And yeah, if something major changes, we'll hop back on once again. But doesn't, we will just wait and slow the pace down a little bit, because it was a day with a lot of change, and we felt that it required us to document that change. And we also had the honor of having a couple of interviews with Mayor and USGS as well, to clarify some of those confusion points, the roads, that whole southwest rift flow and all of that. And here we are. So put in another day tomorrow. Been just about 24 hours since the eruption started, half an hour short, but by this time yesterday, the earthquakes were already getting big and shallow, as we were just describing here. So I'm full circle here, and we wrap it up.
Right.
All right, Dane.
Yeah.
Thanks
all
for
right.
your work today. Good job.
Yeah.
Thank you all you guys who've been following along and can share this information with those who really need to hear it or need it for whatever preparation, planning, or what have you. That has always been our mission, is to improve our preparedness by education, and just to make sure we're clear in our intention here. Hopefully that's what we're doing, and so we support it. Until tomorrow, from HawaiiTracker.com, he's Dane DuPont. I'm geologist Philip Ong. Aloha, everyone.